Members of the committee, my name is Jason Roberts. I'm a resident of Wayland, Massachusetts. I'm here today to testify against Bill S-1202, an act relative to preventing illegal trafficking of firearms. Now, in my opinion, the supporters of this bill seem to think that by restricting the number of guns that legal gun owners can buy, that it will be effective at stopping criminals from obtaining guns. So there's no evidence that I've seen that shows that strict gun laws, such as this proposed one, actually lower gun crime. This bill will place yet another burden on law-abiding gun stores and gun purchasers, that as long as criminals want guns, the black market will find ways of supplying them. For example, the countries of Mexico and Jamaica have very strict gun laws, and these countries have high rates of gun crime. If high rates of gun ownership cause high murder rates, then rural America would be the most dangerous place to live. You don't have the most murders where you have the most guns. Rather, I think you have the most murders where you have the most criminals. If this bill were to become law, I would expect it to be ineffective at stopping crime, and then its supporters would likely claim that it was not strict enough to begin with. I also want to quickly speak against Bill H-665, an act relative to firearms in the Commonwealth. In my opinion, this bill shows tremendous contempt for legal law-abiding gun owners. It is very rare for law-abiding gun owners to misuse their guns, but rather than addressing violent criminals, this bill would further burden legal law-abiding gun owners by requiring them to get insurance for every gun that they own or purchase. And it would strictly limit their ability to sell their guns to other legal law-abiding gun owners. This bill is also an example of collective punishment of law-abiding people. Collective punishment is something every freedom-loving person should be wary of and should be kept to a minimum in America. Legal gun owners in Massachusetts should not be further burdened because of the actions of violent criminals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seth Kellogg. I'm currently a native of Quincy, but I originally grew up in Western Mass, in West Springfield and Westfield. It's with great enthusiasm that I'm able to address the committee this afternoon. As for over 300 years, my family has resided in and served the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have contributed to the general welfare as official Indian translators in the westernmost communities, fielded numerous militiamen and colonial regulars in the French and Indian War and the War of Independence, and on into the 20th century, enlisted in the Massachusetts Army National Guard. I stand here as an advocate before the state, aligned against much of the proposed Senate and House legislation, which will further infringe and erode my rights and the rights of all free men that reside in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The majority of these pending bills do nothing to combat the surge of violent crime committed with illegal firearms. They only serve to place further hurdles and restrictions on lawful citizens that desire to exercise their natural right and constitutionally secured right. I won't go through everything because we have a lot here, but I did submit an official copy to the committee. The proposed Senate Bill 1224, an act relative to the study of the Commission on GPS locators and firearms, proposed by Senator Anthony Petrocelli, is frivolous waste of taxpayer money in the current and future economy. Not only does it seek to adapt technology poorly suited to the task, but it also shows how poorly the elected officials regard citizens' rights in the Commonwealth. House Bill 2916, an act to close a loophole in the assault weapons ban and further reduce gun violence in the Commonwealth, proposed by David Kulinski, is another example of restrictions where none are needed. Firstly, it's not a loophole, it was a grandfather clause. Additionally, the National Institute of Justice has the opinion that further renewals of the assault weapons ban would have little to no effect on gun violence due to the assault weapons rarely being used in gun crimes. This predates even before the ban was first enacted. While most other states have allowed the ban to sunset, they have seen little to no rise in violent crime. Massachusetts, on the other hand, has only seen an increase since the ban has been made permanent by external and robbing. Finally, this bill further divides the citizenry by explicitly denoting an entitled law enforcement class and restricted private class. This dichotomy is morally and historically at odds with the ideals of any free and just society. For over 300 years, firearms have been a constant in the lives of Commonwealth families. While the styles of firearms, diet, clothing, criminals, and towns have changed, there has remained one constant, which is the heart of man. Some men choose to do wicked unto others, irrespective of societal norms and rules. Lawless men do not care about one gun a month laws or to even be licensed in the first place. It needs to be understood that restricting lawful firearms ownership is only the means to an end of the private lawful citizenry's ability to protect themselves. When seconds matter, law enforcement is only minutes away, and the Supreme Court has ruled that the police have no obligation to save a person from harm, if it means risking their own lives to do so. I urge the committee to only approve legislation which will punish violent criminals and to respect private firearms ownership in the common law. Respectfully.
Here.
David.
Mr. Chairman. We've heard a lot of arguments today. I'm going to just go over several as it relates to the other states in the country compared to Massachusetts. As John Keller once said, we're the bluest of blue states. And I thank you that some of you use common sense and intellectual integrity when you consider these laws that are presented before the State House. I'm a longtime resident of Massachusetts, born in Framingham. And I've lived in Alabama, lived in Florida, also lived in Minnesota briefly. And I've come back here because it has the opportunity, because of the innovation in the state, and because of the educational backgrounds. The state has an abundance of economic opportunities that brings people to the state. But that's not why you're here. I'm going to quote Mr. John Lott, who wrote a book called More Guns, Less Crime, which and how it pertains to several of the bills. He presents the results of statistical analysis of crime crime data for every county in the United States during the 18 years from 1977 to 1994. His book, More Guns, Less Crime, expands on an earlier study published in 1997 by John Lott and his co-author David Mustard in the Journal of Legal Studies. Lott also examines the effects of gun control laws, including the Brady Law. John Lott is professor of economics, also with criminology in the University of Chicago. He also has a John Homeland Fellowship, professorship, which is a prestigious economics award. The insurance bill, H.O. 665, this is mine personally. Your testimony, like the health bill, it will mandate me, this is my vested interest of why I escaped work, came down here, I have to go back to work, make up the time when I left here. I'm not pleased to be here, gentlemen. Once again, laws of the state, through no fault of my own, will make me a criminal if I don't apply the law once it gets passed. H.O. 665, like the health bill, mandates me to purchase something that doesn't exist at this time and would make me a criminal if I didn't comply with it. Jesus. Okay? When I was 12 years old, I took my .22 rifle, my cousin Billy, I lived down by Marconi's on 126, went out by the GM plant, out in the woods, and did crow hunting. Okay? That was when I was 15. Now it's 40-something years now. And I can't do that anymore, neither can my kid do that anymore. But fortunately, complying with state laws, I became an already certified firearms instructor and also Mass State Police instructor to teach people safely in education laws, according to mandates of the state, as a firearms safety instructor. And I'm willing to comply with that, and I believe in firearms safety instruction. But what happens is over the 40 years, I didn't change. I had to get a Corey check from my first FID to my last LTC. I also own a CNR, which is a collector's license. I collect evil-looking guns. Okay?
Sorry.
Does anybody on the committee, Chairman, if you indulge me, does anyone know the difference between an M1 Garand and an AR-15?
I do.
I do. Okay.
All right.
Anyone in this committee only firearms?
Like I said, we asked the question. If you want to explain the differences,
Okay.
that's fine.
But what I'm saying is I collect military firearms. Part of those are all semi-automatic because I ran into trouble after the Westfield accident of Jonathan Brazil, Crystal Brazil, when the CMRs were going to come in and force me to have a police duty to run a safety course where I don't make enough money to pay the police duty to run the safety course, shooting guns. I gave testimony at the state police. Okay. Let me get to the shall issue laws relative to H.O. 1562 by Representative